Today I'm going to be at the home ranch trying out some new ideas that I had to try to deal with some issues that I've got going on out in my pasture. In order to do this, I'm going to need my aerator, my 3-point seeder, and the leftover seed from the hayfield. The issue that I'm wanting to deal with are these cow trails out here. That is probably the biggest drawback to doing an intensive rotational graze with these hot wires out here on my pasture, is that the way that I have to set it up so that the cattle can get water means that they are constantly trailing back and forth on the headland of this field. Cattle have a natural tendency to walk right behind the cow that's in front of them, and what that results in are these trails where grass does not grow, and one could assume there's a lot of compaction here as well. So my idea is to bring the aerator down here and just aerate the heck out of these trails, because I know the ground is going to be real hard here. So I'm thinking passing over with the aerator 2, maybe even 3 times. We'll just kind of have to look at the ground and see how it looks, but we'll get it to a certain point where I think it's all right, and then we can spread some of that hay seed on top of it. I've got 400 pounds of hay seed, which means if I was planting bare ground, I could plant 4 acres. There's certainly not 4 acres worth of cow trails here, so what are we going to do with the rest of that seed? Well, my plan is to try to aerate as much of this pasture today as I can, and then spread that seed out at a much lower rate than what I normally would. There are a couple of reasons why I think that this is a good idea for me to do. The first one being that this hay seed is a mixture of oats, wheat, and barley, which are all cool season grasses that you can later cut and bale. But you don't have to cut and bale it. You could also graze it. So my thought is that come sometime around March, I'll have a pretty good stand of grass out here, and depending on what the weather's doing, what my hay supply looks like, this might be a really nice thing to have in my back pocket where I could turn the cows out and they would have enough feed to last them a couple weeks. Another way this might come in handy is if some sort of disaster happens over at the hayfield, say we get high water and the seepage water kills a lot of that crop, well, then I'll have a few acres over here that potentially I could cut and bale. I think it will also be really interesting to see how this seed does. Just putting it down on aerated ground without doing any other kind of groundwork has really piqued my curiosity, because if I could potentially establish a decent stand of hay that way, that might reshape the whole way that I approach planting hay over at the hayfield. Imagine if all I had to do was mow the weeds down, aerate the field, and then spread seed on top of it, maybe drag harrow on top of that. That would be so much easier than disking and floating and all of the other groundwork that I do currently. The way I see it, I've got nothing to lose by trying this and everything to gain. That's what's going on today on Farmer Tyler Ranch. And now that these calves have realized that this gate's closed and they can't come out here anymore, you can see they're wanting out here in the worst way. And seeing them all line up here at the gate has got me thinking about something. Now, stick with me here. So I'm gonna aerate the field, spread seed on top of that, and then I don't really have a good harrow or drag that I can take over this to cover that seed. The harrow, the spring tooth harrow that I use in the hayfield, really needs worked ground in order to work properly. A drag harrow would be perfect for this, but I don't have one. So it kind of got me thinking, what if I was to let these calves out on that pasture after aerating and seeding it? Would them just walking around with their split toe hooves, would that incorporate the seed? Would that be to my benefit? Just sort of let them do that job for me? I don't know. I might try it. Got my main trail aerated down pretty good here along the headland of the field, so now I'm just gonna start going up and down these checks and kind of see how far I can get. Because supposedly it's gonna rain tonight, if you can believe them. Oh, hey, Belly. What do you think of all this, huh? You're doing pretty good staying out of the way, aren't you? Yeah, real good. I got about half of that back pasture aerated, which should be right around 6 acres, and that's pretty good. That's about what I was hoping to get done. You can see the aerator was cutting into the ground really good today. In fact, when I try to stick my knife down here in the hole, I can't actually find the bottom of it. So that it's getting at least 6 inches of penetration down there, which is pretty good. With the aerator gangs at maximum angle and the amount of penetration that we're getting, it was pulling hard on that tractor. In fact, a couple times I noticed I was spinning tires because that grass is a little bit slippery. But that means that we're getting a lot done too. If it's hard for the tractor, then that means that the aerator is engaging the ground quite well and doing what we want it to do. Looks like we got a tired puppy. That's the best kind. So now we're gonna hook this seeder up and fill it up with seed. Trying to get the rate set right is gonna be a bit of a learning curve for me because I've never really used it in this way before, but it'll be good for me to take some notes so that if I ever do need to seed my hayfield with this spreader, I'll at least have something to go off of. I don't really know how much that needs, but it is fairly new, so maybe quite a bit. Folks are bound to see that huge plume of smoke there in the background. That's nothing to worry about. They're just burning off a rice field. Well, that's good to know. 8 50-pound bags of seeds, about all you're gonna get in there. For this first part, I'm gonna seed the trails here that I've been aerating, and there's not really a good way to calibrate the spreader that I know of anyway. I'm gonna have to go so slow because it's so rough going over these levees. So I'm just gonna crack that gate open just enough to let the seed trickle out, and as slow as we're going, hopefully that's about right. I'm sure it's extremely difficult to tell on camera, but that actually looks like a pretty reasonable seed rate. So I think I might adjust it a little bit now that I'm gonna start going up and down the checks, but so far this is working pretty good. So I am gonna open the gate up just a little bit more because we'll be going faster up and down the checks, and we'll need a little bit more seed coming out. Well, I ended up making it all the way over here to the 5th check, which would indicate I covered somewhere around 9 acres. So the seeding rate out here would be roughly about 45 pounds per acre. For overseeding, that's probably still a little bit on the heavy side, but for this experiment, I'm perfectly happy with that. Because we're not really properly like covering the seed or incorporating it into the ground, the germination will probably not be that great. So having a little bit of a heavier seeding rate is probably just fine. And while I was bouncing around on the tractor, I decided that yes, I am gonna let the calves out here. I think them walking on this seed, it will help like push it into the holes from the aerator or just kind of incorporate it into the ground in itself. We're supposed to get some rain tonight. I just checked the weather again and they're more confident, so let's hope this actually turns into something this time. And I think once that ground is a little bit wet, I may just let them stay out here for a couple more days to sort of finish that job. I know a lot of you are probably thinking this is sort of maybe a foolish idea, but I am thinking about when I used to feed my 3-way hay out in the field, which this is 3-way seed. I would always get streaks in the field where that hay would sort of plant itself and start growing back. So that can only happen from seeds that were in the hay. So now we've just got more seeds out here than what would have been dropped from a hay bale, and they're more evenly distributed. So if that hay was able to sprout, then I don't see why these seeds wouldn't be able to sprout. And then the more I think about it, it's like, well, in nature, nobody's covering those seeds. They just fall on the ground and they sprout and grow that way. So we're kind of doing that, I guess. We're helping it along a little bit more with the aeration, but I don't know. This is one of those things where a lot of people will probably tell me that it won't work and I'm wrong because of this, this, and this, but I just want to see for myself what ends up happening. All right, kids, I got a job for you. I think you're gonna like it. What do you think, Billy? They're not too eager, are they? Apparently the calves only wanted in here because they wanted some Redmond salt. Maybe if we walk down here to the end, they'll kind of follow us and start branching out and grazing a little bit. They're kind of hugging the fence line now, but I'm sure they'll branch off here any minute. I do notice though a lot of them are walking along the trail there where I aerated pretty aggressively. There's just something about freshly turned up dirt that cows just can't resist. I don't know, they love it. Whoa, there goes Billy. What are you doing? Huh? What are you doing? Well, we're getting about time to do evening chores, which this time of year is just going around and feeding everybody. So you can see the calves do have hay in their feeders, but we're on that final day where they can't quite reach this core of the round bale. I've got to push this down and out so that they can get to it. Today, I think I am not going to do that though, because I want them to stay and graze that back pasture. There's plenty of grass out there. They're not going to go hungry or anything like that. But if they see me messing around with these bales up here, more than likely they're going to come back up and start eating on them, and I want them to stay down there. These guys, on the other hand, we can push some hay up for them. Are you guys hungry? Is it dinner time? Boy, it's not going to be much longer. You won't be able to fit your big old head through there, boy. Oh yes, you and Callie. A timeless love story. Callie, get out of there. You can probably notice when the bulls are here eating that they're standing down pretty low in relation to where their hay is at. And I am planning to go get some gravel next week, and this is one of the places where it's gonna go. Eventually, I would like to pour a concrete slab here. Obviously, that's not happening this year, but a pile of gravel will actually go a long way and get them at least through this winter up, you know, up on higher ground where they can reach that hay. Actually, the bigger bulls can reach pretty good, but I'm mostly worried about the smaller guy, the Bismarck bull calf back there. He's still quite a bit shorter than these two guys, and it's a little bit tougher for him to reach. As a result, I always got to make sure that the hay is pushed right up to the feed bunk there, and it would be nice if he could just, you know, reach all the way to the ground so that I could rake hay maybe every other day up to the bunk rather than every day. Some of these cows have gotten so impatient waiting for me that they've just taken to eating the rice straw. If you guys remember, I put these rice straw bales out here with the idea that they would help eliminate some of the mud out in this corral, but what I didn't figure on is that these cattle are eating a ton of this stuff, a lot more than I figured they would. I knew they'd chew on it some, but I did not think, I mean, almost every day I come out here and they're out there chewing on it. So if I do this again next year, which I hope I'm able to, I need to bale at least twice as much as what I ended up putting out here. I think I put 8 big bales out here. So it's gonna have to be more like 15 or 20. I'm thinking after this little storm we get, once all that rice straw gets wet, that the cows will sort of back off eating it. But yeah, that's, you know, live and learn, I guess. And speaking of learning, I learned the other day that Belly absolutely loves to chase this flag, and I'm wondering if she's got enough herding dog instinct in her to maybe train her to do that. I know originally that's what German Shepherds were for, but you almost never see people using them for that. So I'm not sure if there's a reason. She certainly indicates that she might like to do it. I don't know, what do you think? Is that just a puppy playing with a toy, or is she actually trying to show me something? Hey, Belly, you stay. Belly, out. Out. She'll learn. I have to say, that is such a satisfying way to unroll a bale. Well, that ought to pretty well satisfy everybody over here. Imagine it'll take a couple weeks before I can really start to tell how much of that seed is gonna sprout, but I'm hopeful that it will be like very noticeable. And I think that walking on the ground, obviously you'll see something, but I think an aerial view with the drone will really kind of tell the story of not only how much of that is or is not sprouting, but how the pattern is too with the spreader. Either way, I'm very interested to see what's going to happen, if this is something that I might want to do again in the future, possibly over more acres. I don't know, it's always exciting to kind of do these experiments and see how they turn out. But I think that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys, and I hope I'll see you again on Farmer Tyler Ranch.